Okay, so on page 566, if you look at the top, it says chapter 13, summary and review. Okay, so we're going to look at that. I want you to look at that and help me to make a sheet for you that you can understand. Looking at that, what things do you think you need to know on a piece of paper for taking a test? These are all the topics. If you look at the top half, it has the basic ideas, it has some theorems, and it has some constructions. Okay, so what are the things do you think you would need to know for putting something on your paper for taking a test? If you were going to write notes up for a test, what would you put on it?
All of them.
That doesn't help me. All of them does not help me. What do you want to tell me to put on it? Tell me one thing.
Basic ideas.
Okay, what are the basic ideas? What was chapter 13 all about?
Circles.
Okay, what about circles? It was all about circles.
Making them inside and outside shape, polygons.
Okay, inscribed, circumscribed, okay. We have a circumscribed polygon and an inscribed polygon, okay. What is a centroid?
It's like this side thing.
Okay. How about you guys look at your notes from chapter 13? I want you to see if you can come up. I'm trying to help you learn how to go back and review for a test. And if you were to have to make up your own set of notes, important stuff, and you could only use one page of paper, what would you put on that page of paper? So that's what I'm trying to help us do here. We are learning how to condense notes to one page,
I don't think we did all of 13.
single-sided. We didn't.
13, 2, 13, 4 right here.
We didn't.
Yeah, we did 13, 1 to
We
13,
did 13.1 to 13.4 is all. So out of those sections, out of those notes, what do you think are some of the ideas that you would put? So what we're thinking of is you have to condense all the topics to one page of notes that you can use, okay? I know the thing that used to be is if you did this, you would say, okay, I will just write it extremely small, and that way I can just write everything down, right? I'll just tell you that doesn't help you on a test because you are reading way too much. And you will never use it because it's way too much for you to read, okay? But the practice of doing this also helps you to review what you went through in those chapters to get ready for a test. Okay, so I'm trying to work through this with you so you know and have practice doing this. So in case they tell you you only get so many notes. A lot of times what they did in college was we would get a 3x5 note card. And we could write as much as we wanted on that note card. Now, if you write really tiny on a note card, you're never going to find it. So you really do want to think of what are the most important things you need. Okay? Yes?
One thing that helps me is examples of how to do it.
Okay. Okay. So you could put some examples. What examples would you put? Yes. Micah?
I was just thinking formulas because I forget formulas.
Okay, formulas would be good. Okay, so looking at this, what did we talk about in 13.1 to 13.4 that you believe, based on what I talked about, in lecture, because you kind of have to think about what I talked about. And based on this summary, what kind of things would you put on a set of notes? Trying to have us do this together, so I want you to
Are
think
we
about
on all of 13 still, or just?
13.1 to 13.4, because that's what we covered. So if you have your notes for those sections, start looking at them. Or if you want to go back to 13.1 and just look at the chapter, I want you to stop and think about what would you put on that's important so that you would know how to do the test, if I gave you a test. Anybody want to start?
Maybe circumscribing a quadrilateral.
Okay, circumscribing a quadrilateral, maybe what that means. Okay, what would you put about circumscribing a quadrilateral?
How you bisect all the sides?
That's actually
I
a
mean, so sorry.
triangle.
It's right here.
You might want to try it. Let's start earlier than that. The quadrilateral is good, but let's go to a triangle. Okay, so I have a triangle. How am I going to circumscribe that triangle?
You find the bisectors of all the sides. And then
Correct,
meet
the
into one.
perpendicular
perpendicular
bisectors. So we want the perpendicular bisectors. Not very good at perpendicular, but you know, it's something like this. And then that doesn't match, so my drawing is not good. So perpendicular bisectors of each side. And what happens when you find the perpendicular bisectors of each side?
There's a point that they all meet,
Yes, they are concurrent.
and it can meet inside or outside.
Point, they
The centroid.
all meet. What is that called?
Centroid.
The centroid. And it can be inside on the triangle or outside. Okay. So then you can draw the circle. What is the centroid? The point where they meet is what?
The center of the circle.
Center of the circle. Oops.
Wait, so that's also the incenter.
No,
Well, that's
incenters differently.
the incenter is the center of the circle.
Well, an incenter is the center of a circle.
But is it also?
It's a different circle.
Okay.
Circle inside the triangle. Right?
Okay, so that's really 13.1, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's all about 13.1? Okay, what was in 13.2? Now give me the next one. Wait, that was what Luke said. Circumscribing a polygon. I mean, a quadrilateral.
That was 13 too.
13.2, okay, is doing the quadrilateral, okay? What do we know about quadrilaterals that can be, oh wait, the centroid is not right. It's the circumcenter that we just found. Sorry about that, that was wrong. The circumcenter is what we just found. This is called the circumcenter. Sorry about that, because if you're circumscribing, it's the circumcenter. Centroid is another point. We didn't really learn how to circumscribe a quadrilateral, but what did we find out about a quadrilateral that is what kind of quadrilateral can you put and
Can't
circumscribe?
do it with a parallelogram.
Okay, what kind do you have to have?
Uh,
What was the thing it
trapezoid
said?
or rectangular square.
Okay, so what does the actual thing say? What do you need to know about what has to be true about your quadrilateral so that you know it can go inside? A quadrilateral has to have what? To be circumscribed. I'm letting you look for it.
Parallelogram.
No. What does it have to have?
4 sides.
That's a quadrilateral, thank you. That's good. What else does it have to have? You told me a parallelogram doesn't
Does it have a
work.
center point,
Well, yeah, that's true.
or could it be?
What is
Oh,
true
bisected.
about the angles of the quadrilateral?
Well, they don't have to be 90
They can be 90,
because
okay?
they have to be acute.
Well, that's
True.
90, they can be 90, so that would be cute.
Should be obtuse.
They have opposite angles that are supplementary.
That's right, they're opposite angles. Opposite
It's just what's on
angles.
my paper.
Oh yeah, I should have read my paper.
Add to 180 degrees. That's why a parallelogram cannot be circumscribed because their opposite angles are the same. They don't add up to 180. So for it to be able to have a circle around it, okay, then we need to know that the opposite angles are supplementary, which means that they add up to 180 degrees. Okay. Okay, so that's something I would write. Those are some things. That circumcenter is where all the perpendicular bisectors meet. Okay, so that's something to know about. Okay, circumscribing a triangle is basically when you draw a circle around the triangle. So this is inside. Circumscribing is when you're on the outside.
Inscribing.
Yeah, then the other is 13.3.
You bisected the angles
Right.
instead.
So we inscribe a triangle, which means you're going to have any triangle, and there is a circle that you can draw that goes inside the circle. Okay. We do the angle bisectors, and they meet at a point. What's the point called?
The incenter.
The incenter. So notice, circumscribing gives you a circumcenter. Inscribing gives you a in-center. To make right to be the center. To be center of circle. Okay. How do I find the radius of the circle that I'm going to use when I inscribe a circle in a triangle? How do I find this? So once I find the center point, I just bisect all these these angles, and I found this point here. How do I find the length of the radius of that circle?
Is it the distance to the sides?
It's the distance to the side perpendicularly. So I have to go to this side at a 90-degree angle, and that's going to be my radius. Okay, so we want to use the distance at perpendicular, or perpendicular distance, perpendicular to any side is radius. I don't care how you write this. I mean, you don't have to write what I write. Make it make sense to you so you know what to do. But that really, we have now just done 13.1 through 13.3. Okay? That little amount, okay, is what you can do. You can use that little amount of paper, really. That's what we're covering. Okay. What was in 13.4? What were we doing in 13.4?
Medians of triangles.
Yes, the medians of triangles. Okay. So when we have a triangle, okay, what is a median?
It's like the thing in the middle of the road that keeps you from going into the other lane.
How do you define a median? Let me tell, yeah, that is what it is, but what is it in here? Everyone tell me what a median is. Look on your notes.
Next a vertex with the midpoint of the opposite side.
Okay, so you find the midpoint of your side and go to the opposite vertex. So medians of a triangle, midpoint of a side to the opposite vertex. Okay. What is that called when they are concurrent also? What is this point called? We've said it once already today. It was the wrong word.
Oh, this is the center.
That's right. Point where they meet is the centroid. Okay. Now, if any of, there's one more thing they talk about in this. Okay, so there's medians, it's the centroid, and then there's one other thing that is true, that is concurrent, that we haven't talked about. Because really, chapter 13 is really about all these concurrent things. You have perpendicular bisectors that are concurrent. That's called the circumcenter. You have the angle bisectors, which are concurrent. That point is called the incenter. You have the medians that are concurrent. They meet at a point called the centroid. And then you have one more. What is the last one of a triangle? What points or what lines are also concurrent? Concurrent. What is it? Look in chapter 13.4 to see.
orthos?
It's the orthocenter, so something that gives me the orthocenter. What gives me an orthocenter?
Triangle.
What is it that you do that gives you an orthocenter?
The lines containing the altitudes.
The altitudes. So these are the altitudes of the triangle meet, oops, not meet that you eat, at this point. Okay, what is an altitude? Where do we use altitude?
In triangles.
Yeah, thank you
Define
very much.
An area.
We use it to find the area. So what do we have to do? When we're finding an altitude, what am I doing? I'm coming from the vertex down at a right angle, okay? I'm making a line from the angle to the opposite side. So it's a line from vertex to opposite side perpendicular to side. Can an altitude be outside of a triangle? Yes, an outside, especially if you have an obtuse angle or something, you will get that. If you have an obtuse angle in your triangle, you will get an altitude that may be outside. So this point can be outside. Will you ever have a centroid that is outside your triangle? No. Will you ever have an incircle or incenter that's outside your triangle? Okay. Can you ever have a circumcenter outside your triangle? Yes, they can be. Remember, it can be inside on the triangle or outside the triangle, okay? So orthocenters can also be inside, outside, or on the triangle, okay? When it's a 90-degree angle, if you have a right triangle, it will be on the triangle itself, okay? So orthocenters and circumcenters can both be inside. Medians and incircle or incenters cannot be. Okay, or I should say centroids and incircles, incenters cannot be. Too many words that sound alike in this thing. Okay. So that's basically how to go through and look at your notes and try to come up with something. What I want you to do now is I want you to take chapter 14. We just did chapter 14 in the last 2 weeks. I want you to look at the sections, look at them, work in your groups, and try to come up with a short little page of notes that you could summarize chapter 14 with. Okay? Take your break first, then you'll come back and try to do that.